All right, what is up, everybody? What this live stream is going to be about is I got a new job. Started a full-time gig, so I'm now working the typical, call it a 9 to 5, but those aren't the exact hours, but the typical working schedule. And I'm going to talk about what that job is, the details of that job, and kind of how I'm adjusting going from contractor life where I can just do whatever I want, whenever I want, to now having the typical full-time job. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you're new to my live streams, I always do a Q&A after my little talk. So I'll talk for like 5 to 10 minutes and then I'll catch up on the chat. So if your chat is way at the bottom and you want to boost it up to the top, feel free to leave a super chat. I always answer those first. So let me catch up on the chat real quick. Josh, what's going on? Inkik, I always mispronounce names. Apologies. Hey, Greg, what's going on? The countdown timer is a nice touch. Thank you. Greg actually just visited San Francisco. He and I did lunch the other day, Thursday, I believe. So, Greg, it was great to meet you. Excuse me. Good talks there. Josh says, do other guys find it in chat, find beards itchy and a hassle to clean after eating? So, it's not itchy once you get past a certain point, but it is a pain in the butt eating. It always is too messy. All right, so I won't spend too much time just in the greetings. Avars, what's going on? Good to see you. Make sure you guys follow, I'm sorry, it's Ivars. That's how you say it. Ivars on Instagram. He's got a good little thing going there with some IGTV, little podcast. I recommend checking that out. All-Star Homes, hey, what's going on? I was early for the stream for a change. Interesting topic today. Yep, I'll be diving into that here in a second as soon as I catch up. Okay, good to see you guys. All right, let's dive into the topic. Again, I'm going to be talking for about, 5 to 10 minutes. During that time, if you have questions for the Q&A at the end, go ahead and start stacking them up. That way I can just rattle through them before. Just a heads up, I do have to end this stream a little bit before 10 a.m. Pacific. I got to go play some basketball. So there is kind of a time limit on this. We'll go for a little under an hour. So let's talk about this new job. I got hired at a startup. If you guys have been following me for a little bit and you saw the job hunt mega vlog I did, if not, that was a 4-part vlog I did where I only interviewed with like 4 of the major companies, and it was like Apple, Facebook, Coinbase, and Google. So I'm seeing pixelated live streams. So let me know if the live stream quality is not that great. I don't know what's going on. This is the same setup I use for a year now. So maybe my internet's acting a little weird. Hopefully it'll fix itself. But so anyway, at the end of that job hunt mega vlog, when Apple and Facebook didn't work out, I was approached by people I used to work with at a startup that they were looking for an iOS developer to help with their product. So we agreed to do a contract to hire position. That was where I contracted with them for about 2 months. And it was a trial period for both sides. A, to see if I enjoyed working on this project and working with them, and B, if they enjoyed working with me. So it's kind of like a 2-month trial. And I've said this many, many times before. I personally love those because I feel if you give me a few weeks, a month, 2 months, whatever to work with you, I feel I'm going to do very, very well in that situation most of the time. So I like that. There was a little bit of a hiccup though, because and I won't get into too much of the nitty gritty details, but I did the 2-month contract, and then when it came to the to hire part of it, as you guys may know, this is a very early stage startup. We're talking like seed funding. So funding is a major issue for these early stage startups. Without getting into too much of the details, an investor check, was delayed, didn't quite come through. They needed that investor check to pay me, basically. So basically what ended up happening was they couldn't bring me on for like 5 to 6 weeks. So I kind of was in this little hiatus period where I didn't know if that check was going to come in. They're like, we want to hire you, but we just can't right now. We don't physically have the money until this check comes in. And again, this is the life of early stage startups in Silicon Valley. This is not uncommon. I'm not saying it's normal, but it happens. And it's kind of like an occupational hazard when you're dealing with these early stage startups. Like, this type of stuff can happen. Long story short, during this time, I was like, well, I don't even know if this is going to happen. So I started applying places. That's what the last live stream was about, how, I started getting my resume ready, started preparing to go on hire.com and just start applying. But basically right as soon as I started applying, the check came in, they hired me full time, everything's good to go. And like I said, I enjoy working on the project. It's with people I've worked with in the past, so I enjoy working with them. So all good. What it is though, it's just, again, a small, I think we're a 5-person startup right now. I can't talk too much about it because we're still in development and everything like that. But it's basically just a medical device that helps people with asthma. It's a hardware device. It connects to the phone via Bluetooth, and I build the app in the user experience that the user has. There is some gamification involved because it is geared towards children. So I will be working with Sprite Kit, so I'm excited about that. That's going to be fun. I've dabbled with Sprite Kit, a little bit, just doing tutorials and side projects, but this would be really cool to actually build like a production level app using some Sprite Kit elements. So I'm excited about that. So that's basically what the company is. Pretty much I'm not the only iOS developer. So some of the other co-founders, they're technical, but they're technical in other languages. So they chip in here and there on the iOS app, but the iOS app is pretty much mine. So that's pretty cool. That's a cool thing to kind of have ownership of the product. And that's a good segue into kind of why I like working at this company, is because it's not just, so with some of my contracts, which this is good too, it was, here's all the designs, the UI and the UX is already thought out, it's already designed. Here's the API backend, already built, you just need to use it, and go ahead and build. So on one hand, that's super nice and super convenient as an iOS developer. You have everything you need to just go build. But I also like figuring out the best UX, figuring out the best UI, tweaking it, having input on the design of it. So I have that aspect of things now at this new job. So I really, really, really like that. And then also, like I said, it's a 5-person startup, so you wear many, many hats. For example, I'm in like all the product meetings and what this product is going to be, from pricing to game design. Like, okay, we're doing this game. What is the game actually going to be? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's not just here's the designs, here's the API, build the app. It's kind of like, here we have to make this product come to life and launch it, hopefully by the end of the year. Do that by any means necessary, and I get to contribute to all different types of the product life cycle. So that is a lot of fun. That's a great experience as well. Back to the schedule. This is the thing that I'm a little struggling with, is from a contractor perspective. Like when I was contracting with them for the 2 months, I was on 30 hours a week, and I could basically come and go as I pleased, right? As long as I got those 30 hours, I could do that on a Saturday. I could do that at night. Excuse me. As long as I was just in the office for key meetings or key times when we needed to collaborate, I could pretty much do what I wanted, come and go as I pleased. I think this might be my own mentality. Like, I don't feel like I have that freedom in a 9 to 5. And I don't want to paint this startup as it's a 9 to 5 prison. You have to be there at 9 and you leave at 5. It's not that at all. But, leaving at noon one day or 3 days a week is a little weird, and work from home 2 days. I probably need to be there a lot more. So that is a bit of an adjustment. And in the mentality is a bit of an adjustment too. So when you're a contractor, you're billing by the hour. So when I went into that office, I was laser focused on my coding, my working, because I was billing them $100 an hour. So it was like, I felt bad if I slacked off and, BS with the coworkers for a half hour, right? Because I'm billing them. So as a contractor, when I go in the office, again, laser focused, work, and then leave. Whereas full-time salary, it's a little more laid back. You don't have to be like as laser focused, and you're not worried about hitting a certain amount of hours every week, and I'm not tracking hours. So that is an interesting mentality shift as well. And again, so those are my two main things I'm dealing with, is the mentality shift and the schedule. The schedule was okay because the July 4th holiday, didn't really go into the office that much this week, but still trying to figure out how I'm going to incorporate like YouTube and basketball and everything. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not quitting YouTube at all, but it's just going to be tough because as a contractor, again, I could do whatever I want, come and go as I please. It was easy to squeeze in all this extra stuff. Now it's going to be tricky. So still figuring that out. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. Full-time job. It's interesting. Nice change of pace. Going to the office every day. I did buy a boosted board. That's kind of cool because my commute is like a 45-minute walk right now. So hopefully that boosted board will cut down on that commute quite nicely. So that doesn't ship for another 4 weeks though, because I got the new one. But all right, a little off topic. Let's dive into some of the questions here, get caught up. So again, if you joined late, I give my little 15-minute spiel on the topic. So if you came in late and you missed all that, the replay will be up about an hour after the stream, maybe a little later because I'm going to play basketball. But the replay will be up later, so check that out if you missed it. Now we're in the Q&A section. And again, go ahead and start stacking up your questions. If you want your question popped up to the top, maybe you got to go soon, go ahead and drop a super chat. I always prioritize those first, and they are greatly appreciated. Let's dive into the list. Okay, Alice there says the quality is good. Cool, yeah, on my screen it looks pixelated, so I was a little worried about that. Vinyesharaj says, hey Sean, what's going on? Josh talking to Ivar says, what is the name of your podcast? If it is about iOS development, I'll add it to my directory. So yeah, like I mentioned before, Ivar is part of the community here, and he's got a pretty good podcast, a good Instagram page as well. So just check him out. Alfonso says, hey, Sean, I have a final interview this week. Your videos have been a big help with me learning iOS. Thanks, Alfonso. So I see Alfonso on Twitter all the time. I believe he's in Oakland, too. He's in the Bay Area. We should definitely grab lunch sometime or grab a drink or something. Yeah, I'd love to hear how that final interview goes. Those are rough, not going to lie. It's 5 to 6 hours all day, 5 different interviews. Every company does it different, but that's typically what it is. And so best of luck with that. Definitely let me know how it goes, and I hope you get it. Oh, before I forget, I did have a question. I'll pop it up here on the screen. Michael Stram tweeted me, says, you should discuss how much of your job is meetings versus coding. At least for me, it's crazy amount of meetings, even per day at times. So I've been a part of 3 startups in my tenure here in San Francisco. So I moved to San Francisco in July of 2014. I'm actually coming up on my 4-year anniversary of living in San Francisco. And of the 3 startups I've been a part of, they've all been fairly similar. So typically, there's always a stand-up. If you're not familiar with what a stand-up is, it's typically like a 10 to 15-minute meeting in the morning where your team gets together, and they call it a stand-up because they want it to be very short. If you have the ability to sit down, the meetings tend to drag. So that's why it's called a stand-up. So you get annoyed if it's too long. But basically, you talk about what you did, what you were working on, what you accomplished like the previous day, what you're going to accomplish today, and are there any blockers? And if there are any blockers, what can we do to fix them? Whoops, wrong button there. Wanted to get me back on the screen. So that's basically a stand-up, and pretty much every startup has that, whether it's every day, some are every other day, little mix up there, but that's pretty standard. And then every engineering team had a sprint planning meeting on Monday, and usually sprints are 2 weeks. So the first Monday, and again, every company does this different. I'm just telling you what I've experienced at my company. The first Monday of the 2-week sprint was actually planning the sprint, going through the user stories, creating them, talking about them. And we used a program called Pivotal Tracker. There's many other ones you can use. And the second Monday of that week was kind of doing a status check on that sprint to where, hey, are we still on track? If we're not on track, what do we need to do to get back on track? And then there'd be like a couple other meetings sprinkled throughout the day. So in my experience, the meetings are definitely there, but they're not overbearing to where it's like I can't get anything done, at least in my experience. But I have heard of plenty of engineers that complain that they can't get anything done because they're just in meetings constantly. So thanks, Michael, for contributing that question on Twitter when I asked for it. And yeah, I thought it was a good one. All right. Vignette says, hey, Sean, is anyone using Flutter? I feel there's some catch in it. Launch times varies devastatingly, I assume. I have no experience with Flutter. All I do know is it's super, super new. So I'm assuming it's going to grow and evolve, just like Swift did, from Swift 1 to Swift 4.2 now. So I can't really give a comment on that. I would say that if you're using it, just know that you're using a very, very early version of the programming language, well, Dart's the programming language, but of the framework, and that it is going to change drastically over time, probably. Oscar says, hey, Sean, what's going on, Oscar? Oscar's AR kit guy. If you want to follow him on Twitter, he'll post some cool AR kit stuff. I get a lot of my AR kit stuff for Swift News off Twitter, and I notice Oscar's usually retweeting some of those, and he's got a newsletter out, I believe, so definitely check that out. Dennis says, congrats. Question, if I keep sabotaging myself in interviews because I don't have any experience, how do I gain confidence? You're not going to like my answer, but the answer is you just have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and sabotage yourself 10 times, embarrass yourself, just basically get your butt kicked. And then eventually you'll kind of get used to that and that'll go away. You won't sabotage yourself. You'll have confidence. You'll be like, you know what? I've done this 20 times. I'm good. And let's go. That's how I was. So back in early 2017, back when I was only like 1 year into my career, a year and a half maybe, I made the rounds to a lot of major companies here in Silicon Valley and basically got my butt kicked. Just went in there but it was my first time ever really seriously interviewing. So it's kind of one of those experiences you just have to get through. Like, yes, it's going to be rough. You're probably not going to get the job. Hopefully you do. You might get it, but most likely you're not. But it is that experience that you need. So now when I go into interviews, like I know exactly what to expect. I mean, I may be a little nervous depending on the company. Like I was nervous for the Apple interview because it's Apple, but smaller companies I don't really get nervous for. But yeah, and that's just because I went out and got my butt kicked so many times that I know what to expect. I know what it's going to be. So yeah, that's really the answer. Is you just have to do it a bunch. I know that's not the easy thing. I know that's not the silver bullet answer, but I don't know. I think that's the way to go. Oscar says, "Congrats on your new job." Thank you. Rionaldi says, "How is the environment in your new office, considering it's a startup company?" So we're actually part of a incubator. So it's kind of a shared office. So I don't know the number of companies. It's probably 10 to 15 other companies in this like open floor plan. But I'm probably going to do a blog about it because the area is actually really, really cool. And they focus on hardware companies. Like you notice we have a hardware device. So there's like people with drone companies. So there's drones flying around and stuff. And yeah, it's very hardware focused. So it's not super software-y, but it is a shared workspace. And there are many other companies in there as well. So it's a pretty cool looking area too. It's a brand new space they just built for it. So it's real like modern and stuff. It's pretty cool. Sky Brown says, "Hey Sean, just wondering, how was the pace at your boot camp? Did you feel it was too slow and you were grasping the concepts really quickly, or too fast and you found yourself trying to catch up?" So Sky, no, I got my butt kicked in the boot camp. So I went into the boot camp with no prior knowledge. I was going to study for a couple months leading up to it, but I just played basketball and was lazy, so I didn't. I went into my boot camp overly confident. Like I've always done very, very well and this is a knock on me. Like I'm not bragging. Like I've always done very, very well in academic settings. Like school just always came easy to me. You just reverse engineer the teacher, figure out what you have to do to get the good grade and do that. However, so I came in with that mentality of the boot camp, and I just got my butt kicked in the boot camp. I was very humbled in the boot camp. So the first 3 or 4 weeks, I was so lost. I was doing raywunderlich.com like at night, like working 12 hours a day trying to catch up. But by about halfway through, I caught up and things started clicking, and then I was fine. But it was just in the beginning, it was kind of like a shock to me that it was like, holy crap, this is much harder than I expected. I need to fix this. And I had to hustle my butt off to kind of catch up. So I would say if you are adequately prepared, if I don't know if you're going to a boot camp or not, Sky, but if you're adequately prepared, you should be fine. Again, everybody's going to be different, but what hurt me was I didn't prepare as much as I should have. So Oscar says, "Where's the company based? Are you working on site or remotely?" It's here in San Francisco. It's near the Airbnb office. So yeah, it's locally. I might work from home one day a week, but other than that, I walk to the office every day. It's a 45-minute walk, so looking forward to getting that boosted board here. Dennis says, "When you say UX, do you mean interaction design or UI or all?" When I say UX, I mean the user experience, like the flow of the app, not necessarily what the app looks like. So I may have these definitions wrong, but when I say UI, I talk about like the look of the app, like the design. When I say UX, I talk about how the screens flow together and how the user flows through the app when I say UX. So that's what I mean by that. Is there a Udacity iOS nanodegree worth it? I have completed a few Udemy courses and some Ray Wunderlich tutorials. So I did the Udacity nanodegree basically when it first came out, like Swift 1, and it was one of their very first cohorts. So this is 3 years ago. And I would say at that time, no, because it was so new. The forums weren't fully developed. They didn't have all their help figured out. I can't speak for it now. I'm assuming they've improved it vastly over 3 years and since Swift 1, now that they've gotten experience doing a bunch of cohorts. I'm hoping they've learned from things and made it better. But based on my experience, I would say no. But again, I don't think that's a fair judgment on them because it was their very first time doing it. So Lucas says, "What's your new job?" Lucas, go ahead and watch the replay after this. I talk about it for the first 10 minutes. So yeah, the replay will be up, I don't know, like I said, probably about an hour or two after this, after I get back from basketball. Alistair says, "You said that you need to have a runway or some months to survive as a contractor." Yep. So what are your thoughts on selling apps or app templates to get some additional income during the famine period? I've never done that, so I don't have any firsthand experience on it, but anything you can do to get additional income during the famine period, is good. Like mine, for example, was this YouTube channel. The ads don't bring any money in. I mean, I make like $300 a month on ads, just so you know. I'm not making a killing. But where I was able to subsidize the famine period was I did coaching. I know some people here in this chat have actually done coaching with me. So that helped subsidize. So whether it's, specifically selling apps or app templates, sure. Whatever you can do that maybe you're a designer, maybe you can outsource some designs, maybe you can coach, or anything you can do to subsidize your income to help you get through that famine period I wouldn't say just a very good idea. I would say it's almost like a must to be a successful long-term contractor. So if for you, if selling apps or app templates you feel is a good way to do it, yeah, go for it. You got to have something. Yep, Ivar's is talking about his Instagram here. I would definitely check that out. Vinyuresh, can we autopilot your boosted board on your commute with Apple Maps data? Like we see a drone controlled with Swift programming. Don't know the answer to that one. Sky Brown says, do you see yourself staying at the full-time job long-term or possibly going back to contracting/freelancing? Are you doing freelancing on this side? So this is a good question. I'm actually going to touch on this in Swift News tomorrow because I have an article with like career advice, but I never really planned my career more than like a year or two in advance. That is because things change just ridiculously rapidly. Like, for example, I just mentioned I moved out to San Francisco in July of 2014. Being a developer wasn't even a thought in my mind. I would have never imagined I would be a software engineer. However, so I got here in July. By April of 2015, so not even a year later, I quit my job and I was pursuing development full time. So things just change so fast. So I like to plan out like 1 year, maybe 2, but I know they're very loosely held plans. So as far as do I see myself staying here? I don't know. I know we're launching by the end of the year, or well, that's the goal anyway. So I'm for sure, unless something crazy happens, for sure going to be there through the end of the year. After launch, we'll kind of see how things go, if more funding comes in, all that good stuff. That's kind of going to be a fork in the road. Do I stay? Do I go somewhere? I do think the next step after this, and I might do some contracting in the downtime, but the next step after this is that large company. It doesn't have to be Apple or anything like that, but some company that has a large app that has millions of users, right? Because that's the gap in my career right now. Like I've worked at plenty of startups, building apps from scratch to launch, kind of that early stage stuff. And actually, I like that, to be honest with you. That's where I think I want to be. But I do feel like a valuable, necessary skill set for a developer is to work on that mature app that, has millions and millions of users that, it's like a totally different development environment, right? When you're the scrappy startup building from scratch versus every small change you do is going to affect millions of users. I want that experience in my career, like that chapter of my career. I want that. So I do think I'm going to go for that in the next step before coming back to contracting/freelancing. And hopefully, I'm hoping, 2-3 years down the road, YouTube can be big enough to kind of do full time. But again, I want these chapters before I go full time YouTube. I want that big company chapter before I can go full-time YouTube. And again, full-time YouTube is just one option. Like I said, 2-3 years down the road, you can't. It's very, very hard to plan for that. But good question. Thank you. Johan says, what do you feel about Swift language and its maturity in the development community? So I think now here we are at Swift 4.2 going into Swift 5 early 2019. I think is in a good spot. If you've been around from Swift 2 to 3, that was huge breaking changes, and a lot of people avoided switching to Swift, because that scared people away. But I think I don't want to say this, but I think we're mostly past all the breaking changes, the major, like, holy crap, we have to spend 2 weeks just to upgrade from Swift 2 to Swift 3 kind of stuff. So I would say we're in a good spot. Moving forward. So I don't know if you have a project that you're debating whether to build in Swift or Objective-C. I definitely think if you're building a new project, Swift is 100% the answer if you're starting one like right now. Ivar says, Sean, we'll be very interested to hear how you balance full-time job and YouTube. Yeah, like I said, this was my first week, and it was the July 4th holiday weekend, so we were off a lot, so it was kind of not a real week. But yeah, it's going to be tricky. I think what's going to end up happening is I'm going to do a lot of batch recording on the weekends. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I do think I'm going to work from home 1 day a week, so that'll help out as well. But it's definitely going to be So Swift News is going to happen every Monday for sure. Like that's going to be like the staple of the channel. Swift News every Monday, and then probably one tutorial throughout the week. So, and then maybe a live stream on the weekend. So probably 2 videos a week is what I'll end up pumping out now that I'm full time. Swift News and a tutorial. That's kind of probably going to be the pattern, but we'll see how that goes. Dennis says, have you ever done any web dev? How does it compare against Swift app, which is harder? I've never done any web dev. I've basic HTML, CSS to build my personal website, but I would say I barely know that. Like I know enough to get by. I don't like know it very well. So can't really answer that one. Bing says, what should I do to improve my self-thought process of app creation after learning some basics? I can write code if I know what the steps are, but I can't think the process. This is always my answer, just repetition and keep at it. Keep doing the tutorials, and from the tutorials, try to think of your own app idea. That's when I really started learning, is when I had my own app idea and I wasn't following a tutorial and I wanted to build my own app. That's when the learning really started progressing, because it's like, okay, I want to do this, like insert feature here. And then I had to figure out how to make that feature work. And it wasn't just following the steps of a tutorial. Maybe I used a tutorial as a guideline to base it on what I needed, but so that's always my answer. That's always a big step. When people first start, it's like, yeah, I can follow a tutorial, but I can't do it on my own. That is a very, very common pitfall. And a lot of times people get to that point and they fall off and they don't power through to the next level. And I always say, like, I think getting to that next level is having your own project idea. And again, I think people also think that, I have to think of my own app idea. It's got to be on the App Store and the next Blockbuster. Like, you don't have to even put it on the App Store. Just, it can be a copy of something. Maybe not a copy, but it can be very similar like something. And again, don't think that it has to be on the App Store and be successful. It just has to help you learn and get over that hump. Okay, Sky says, so what does a typical week look like for you now? I can let you know next week. Like I said, this July 4th holiday kind of, wasn't a typical week because basically a lot of the team was leaving that Thursday and Friday. So I basically was off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So it wasn't a typical week yet. So too early to tell. Dennis, how do you manage the code and do UX design together? So UX design is kind of something I've gotten over time. Being a developer for 3 years and studying UI, UX and stuff like that, you just kind of have a feel for it and like what are the best practices, what are not the best practices in the UX. So it's kind of second nature, but I don't want to act like I'm the full-time UX designer. Like I kind of just chip in ideas and say, no, we should do it this way. This is not the best practice. I'm not like the full-time UX designer. Kaya says, would you start your own startup? I think I'd be good at it. I know that sounded very arrogant, but I do think I'd be good at that because I think I can do a lot of things well. Or I may not be a super expert in one area. I feel like a generalist is what they call it. I feel like I'm a pretty good generalist. So I do think I'd be good there, but I wouldn't do it just to do it. I would only do it if I just had an idea that I thought was an amazing idea, and I was like, wow, this is absolutely going to work, and I couldn't sleep because that's all I thought about. That's the only way I would do it. I'm not going to be like, oh, I kind of like this idea. Let me do a startup. Like, it would have to be something I'm insanely passionate about. So yeah. Hey, Sean, when will you get married or any plans? Been there, done that. We'll just say that. A long time ago. Previous life. Thomas says, hi from Romania. What advice would you give to a 21-year-old who wants to move to the U.S.? Are small companies willing to employ foreigners and eventually sponsor them? So the sponsorship, I don't know. I don't have any experience with that. I do know sometimes it's tricky dealing with the H-1Bs. I believe that's what it is. So yeah, I can't really speak intelligently to that because I've never dealt with that. But as far as like, do they hire people from internationally? Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. What are your thoughts on hyper-focusing on Swift versus learning everything? This depends on what you want to do with your career, the Mr. Bynum 86. If you for sure know you want to be a mobile app iOS developer and you want to write Swift, then yes, I would say laser focus on Swift. If you're not sure what you want to do yet, and you're like, maybe I want to do mobile, maybe I want to do web, maybe I want to do, design, I don't know, whatever. Then I would recommend learning a little bit, like tasting a little bit of everything to see what you like. And then once you find out what you like, then go hyper-focus down that route. Long story short, if you know what you want to do, hyper-focus on that. If you're not sure what you want to do yet, taste a little bit of everything before you go hyper-focused. Martin said, what would you recommend for some UI design courses for iOS or any good platform to hire designers for small projects? So I've never really taken design courses. I'm on Dribbble all the time. I follow a lot of design blogs. And if you do that over the course of a few years, you're going to pick up some stuff. And again, by no means do I say I'm a professional designer. I always say I'm a design enthusiast. Like, I really enjoy it. I really like it. But I'm not going to say that I'm a super pro designer. Eula says, hey, Sean, how's it going with your own projects? Any plans? I do have some app ideas that I might pursue eventually. But like I said, right now, working basically full-time job, YouTube, and basketball takes up 100% of my time. Like, I have very minimal time for other stuff, like another like actual project. So if I were to build my own app, it's either going to take a very long time and I'll make like a YouTube series out of it. So and kind of hit, two birds, one stone. I have an idea for a game I really want to do. And I think at this company, if you missed out on the beginning of the talk, this company, there's some gamification involved, and I will be working with SpriteKit a lot. So hopefully I'll get my SpriteKit skills on point here at this company. And then when it comes time to build the game I have in mind, I can just kind of whip through that a lot faster. So we'll see how that goes. What's going on, Ali? How should I proceed further with iOS development after completing a couple Udemy courses? I kind of answered this one earlier. Basically, just start building your own apps, your own small projects. Build a camera app just to get used to working with the camera. Build like a movie database app. You see a lot of tutorials based around these concepts, but basically, think of all the very, very common features in an iOS app. Again, camera, maps, table views, networking. Basically all the stuff you see in a lot of apps. Start building small apps around those features because those are the most common things you're going to have to know as an iOS developer. All right, catch up on my chat. Ollie says, are you working on any cool projects, learning anything cool? I just kind of just answered that. Nope, full-time job in YouTube. That doesn't leave much time for anything else. Hi, Sean. What common challenges will someone have to face as getting a first full-time job? If you're just talking about the skills to know at to get that full-time job, or like once you get hired, I think it's just trying to get hired. So basically getting that first job is a challenge because you have to find somebody to kind of take a chance on you. Because normally when you're a junior developer getting your first job, you're not the greatest developer. And that's just the truth. I mean, I was horrible, right? They take a chance on you because they hope that, okay, we think you're good. We like your work ethic. We like your attitude. And we think you're going to learn this well. Don't get me wrong. You have to have some development skills. But for the most part, you're not going to be an amazing developer in your first job. So I would recommend focusing heavily on your soft skills. Again, how well you work with a team, your attitude, your work ethic. Like, are you a good teammate? Are you somebody people want to work with? That is such a big part that people miss is when you get hired, it's because people want to work with you. Not only because you can do the development job, just because you're just a good person. You're fun to work with. If you're a dick and nobody wants to work with you, it doesn't matter how good of a developer you are. You're probably not going to get hired. So, yeah. Robert Ramirez, are you doing any testing at your new job? Well, we're definitely not doing TDD, test-driven development. But there will be, there's no test in it yet because we're still super early prototype stage. Yes, there will be testing, but it's not test-driven development where test-driven development is where you write your tests first before you write your code. So it's like if you're going to write any code, you write the test for it first and then write the code for it. It's kind of I've never done it. But yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it. Kevin says, Bluetooth stack on Android is not great. We have to write different methods to discover devices and read-write characteristics for different versions of Android. It sucks. I think iOS is doing better. So I don't have any experience on the Android, but iOS Bluetooth is pretty straightforward. So I imagine, yeah, I can see what you're saying. It is a lot easier on iOS. Wawaru says, hi, Sean. I also got my first job too. Well, this isn't my first job, but it's for those that are new that don't know me. I guess I just assume people have been following me. No, I've been an iOS developer for 3 years. First year and a half was at a startup. The next year and a half or so was as a full-time contractor, freelancer. And then just recently, I just switched from contracting and freelancing to just a full-time position. That's all. So yeah, I've been working full-time for 3 years. Just I don't know, just dawned on me there might be some confusion there in my title. Maybe people thought it was my first full-time job. How do I manage to work on my side projects using different language with the one we use at work? Is it advisable to work with different language at all? Sure, that's fine. Just do it in your spare time at night. It is good to kind of diversify your languages, and I say that. I mean, I'm not doing that. I'm pretty much all Swift because my side project is the YouTube channel and doing Swift tutorials and stuff. But for sure, I always recommend having side projects and expanding your knowledge, diversifying your knowledge level for sure. All right. Tolga says, how can I contact you? Maybe we can make some brainstorming. You can reach out to me at DM on Twitter. My Twitter is in the lower right, as you can see. It's usually the best place to get a hold of me. Alfonso says, it's funny because in most cases I'm working on the mature apps, also being comfortable with Objective-C, but Swift has been around long enough that it's starting to change. Yeah, I've seen this on Twitter a lot. A lot of old school developers have talked about how they've been writing Swift longer than they wrote Objective-C. So Swift is definitely maturing, and little by little, it's just gonna take over, right? Like when Swift first came out, everything was still mostly Objective-C. Every year Swift gets older, it's slowly shifting over to Swift, and it's still going to take a few years. And huge companies like Facebook probably won't ever switch to Swift just because their code base is ridiculously large, and converting that over would be, probably more pain than it's worth. So there are certain companies that have been around for a very long time that, I never want to say never, but will most likely not switch almost ever, unless they do a complete rewrite of their app from the ground up. But again, newer startups will probably be in Swift. Andy says, missed the start. I'll check back to the full video afterwards. Keep it up. Thanks, Andy. Hey, Sean, I want to start as a freelancer. Any advice? I build a portfolio website and planning on writing articles on my blogs. Other tips for freelancing. So I think you're on the right path, to be honest with you. Having a portfolio website where people they see your name, they can go look at your work and make it very visual, right? People don't want to just look at your GitHub and try to read through code. Make it very visual with a lot of pictures and screenshots of your apps, make it look really good, and start, like you said, articles on your blog. I always recommend an online presence. I get hit up for contracting opportunities just based off this YouTube channel all the time that I have to, turn down or not pursue. So if you do build up a blog that you can showcase your knowledge, so here, you're on the right path. Like I said, people go see your website. Cool, look at the stuff he's done. Then they go to your blog. Oh, here's his knowledge. It's basically like interviewing before you interview kind of thing. So that is my biggest advice. Yes, what you're already doing. I guess the piece that is not there is building your network. So all my contracts have come from my personal or professional network. So start building that up. Go to local meetups, local hackathons. I don't know, just start networking with people and let them know you are an iOS developer looking for work. David says, I know you mainly make apps for other companies, but have you ever considered releasing your own apps on the App Store? Yep, I kind of answered that a little bit ago. I do have a game in mind that I want to pursue. I might do, I don't know. Might do, might not. I've had this idea for 3 years, so I'll do it eventually. Sky says, thanks so much for answering my questions. Looking forward to more updates in the future. No problem, Sky. Appreciate it. Whittle Porg says, hi, Sean. I just laughed at your name, sorry, in the image of the Borg. How to budget freelance projects, like a timeline and cost. So I always just said, hey, here's my hourly rate. I think it's going to take anywhere from, 100 to 150 hours. There you go. It's just so hard to budget exactly. You have to give them a pretty wide range, in my opinion, just because, especially when you're trying to project out an entire app, that's just very hard. So give a very, very wide window, and just be openly communicative with the client. Let them know that basically what I just said, it's impossible to project everything hour by hour. So you have to give them a pretty wide window. Hi, Sean. Have you heard some companies on the Valley that use Swift as backend? Not yet. I'm sure there are a couple sprinkled out there. I'm not saying nobody does it, but it's definitely not the common go-to. I hope one day it is. I'm rooting for server-side Swift. I just don't think it's there yet. Again, I'm not saying nobody's using it, but it's not the go-to. Kaya says, a lot of people believe that you have to remember every line of code. That is not true. I forget line of code that I wrote 2 days ago. Sean, one question, resources for learning Swift. Thanks. I'm going to say hackingwithswift.com and then raywenderlich.com. Just Google those and you'll be good to go. Victor says, any online business ideas for programmers except YouTube? Interesting. I don't want to stay on this. No, I'm just going to say no. I have thought a lot about building this YouTube business. So if you want to build like an online brand or online, persona type business, I got a lot for you. If you want something else, not quite sure. Coaching, I mean, that's what I do. I sell coaching. Or if you want to make courses, but that's kind of like teaching stuff. I don't know if that's what you're looking for. How useful are algorithms in app development? I'm sure they're useful, but as a client-side developer, somebody kind of not working the lower end, you don't use them too much. The typical like data structures and algorithms type stuff. I guess the actual definition of an algorithm is just, like a step-by-step thing. But yeah, you don't use them that often in actual client-side development if it's the algorithms you're thinking of. Drew Lookinham says, hey Sean, have you ever implemented a pattern other than MVC? What's your thought on the different patterns you know? Thanks. I've dabbled in MVVM, but I always go back to MVC. It's tried and true. I can be quick with it. And like I always say, when contracting, speed is like of the essence. You'll usually only have like 2 months to build this app. So you don't really have time to, experiment with a new architecture. I know MVC works, just knock that out. And I think most apps are probably MVC or some slight variation of that. But I'm not saying they're bad. I love the concept of MVVM, just kind of extracting that view model layer out, just an extra level of abstraction. So I just don't have a ton of experience with it. Are you optimistic about the future of server-side Swift? Optimistic, yeah. I'm rooting for it. I want it to happen because I always say, I can design an app. I can build a client. The only thing I can't do to build an entire app from start to finish is build the back-end server stuff. So if server-side Swift takes off and becomes a big thing, cool, now I already know the language. And the barrier to entry to me learning that back-end stuff is a lot lower. So I'm optimistic about it. I hope it works out. I hope it does. We'll see. Sean, all the best and congrats. Thank you, Ahmad. Toga says, okay, they're talking to other people. Ahmad says, by the way, I missed the start. Where is the job? So it's just a small startup. It's called Aluna. You can check it out on my website, seanallen.co. Just a 5-person startup. But yeah, the replay will be up. I don't want to rehash it again. I talk about it for like 10 minutes. Widowporg says, I'm sorry, I can't say that without laughing. Once you learn the basics of programming, it's easy to transfer from one programming language. For sure. I'm a full stack, full web stack in Python and Swift, iOS, Mac. Yeah, once you understand the basic, what he said. Yeah, you get the basic concepts. There will be a little bit of a learning curve, learning how like that language does stuff differently. But yeah, once you have the concepts, you'll be fine. Okay. David Kim says, do you absolutely need a power machine to develop? No, you can, if you want to you can get started on like a MacBook Air. It's not going to be the most ideal. It's probably going to be slow and laggy, but it's possible. Yo says, just got out of work. What's up, everyone? What's going on, Yo? Thanks for coming. Yo's a regular here. Appreciate it again. Radical says, how do you handle multiple clients? If you take multiple contracts, how do you find the time to work on all of them at once? So you just have to budget your time as far as so at least in my contracting experience, some of them were like, okay, we only need you for 15 to 20 hours a week. So it's like, okay, so you have 20 hours of your week blocked off. So now you can find another client and say, hey, I only have 20 hours a week availability. Does that work for you? If they say yes, cool. And maybe they only need 10 hours a week. And then now you have 10 hours a week to give. So it's kind of like these blocks of your time. The most contracts I've been on at once was 4, and I wouldn't recommend that. Like I did that once, and now I'm like, I'm not going to do that again. So I don't recommend it, but that's basically how it works. And like I said, contracts are various. I've had contracts with like, hey, I only want you to chip in here and there, so I only need about 5 hours a week. Some are like, I need 40 hours a week, and then there's everything in between. So you just kind of have to manage what kind of contracts you're getting in that sense. Sorry, my chat keeps jumping around. I'm getting closer to putting my app on the App Store. Any recommendations on how I can advertise my app? Well, App Store has paid advertisements now. You can always do that. But have you thought about learning cross-platform tool like Flutter or React Native in order to develop for both platforms? This way, maybe you would be able to get more projects. What do you think? So Radical, I'm not going to, again, whatever, I'll just sound arrogant. I have no problem getting contracts. I don't, like people always say, oh, you should diversify, learn other stuff than Swift and work on Android. I have no interest in Android, and I have no problem getting work in Swift. This YouTube channel has been a great marketing tool for me. I have plenty of contracting offers coming in. Again, most of the time I have to turn them down because I'm already booked. So again, I hope I don't say that to sound arrogant, but if I were struggling, for sure. Okay, so let me put it that way. If you are struggling to find work, then yes, I think diversifying your skill set will help you find more work. However, if you're not struggling to find work, work in the language you like, and the one that you prefer to. So Suresh says, how about React Native? I've never worked in React Native. I know that's a real hot topic right now with Airbnb yanking out React Native. Some other companies saying, no, React Native is great. I don't know. It's interesting to watch how all this plays out. What is the average pay for an iOS developer? David Kim asks. This is going to vary from country to country, and even in the US from city to city. So like the average pay for US iOS developer in San Francisco is going to be vastly different than somebody that's in like Ohio or something. So this is almost an impossible question to answer unless you tell me like what country and you live in. And if it's not the US, I probably won't know. Why did you switch from freelance to a full-time job? I just kind of got bored working by myself out of my apartment every day. Like you can kind of see behind me, it's just a small studio apartment. And every day, like my bed is like right over there. So my commute was like, get out of bed, come to my computer. And it was just, didn't get on my pajamas most days. I don't know. I just kind of got bored of that. But as far as the freedom you get with freelancing, like the freedom is amazing. I will miss that, but basically I just wanted to work with a team again and kind of go into an office and interact with people, as weird as that sounds. Okay, I'm gonna have to go through the lightning round because I gotta go in like 5-10 minutes. So if you have any last second questions, go ahead and get them in. I'm just gonna start answering these really, really fast. If your question involves a super in-depth answer, sorry, I might not get to it, but try to hit up all these in the lightning round in the last 5 minutes here. No, man, I'm just chatting from a person from chat. Okay, I must have thought you were asking me a question. My bad, Tolga. No worries. Okay, I'll skip all these ats then. What up, more cross-platform talk. Cross-platform may have benefit for having to develop on multiple platforms, but they can't reach the full power of Swift can. Sean, yeah, and that's how I feel about it. So I always say I don't bash cross-platform development. I just say there's certain business cases where cross-platform makes sense, where you're trying to save money, and maybe your apps. I always use like Home Depot as an example. I have no idea what Home Depot's app is made in, but like their app is not their main business case, right? It's just kind of like a secondary thing. Whereas something like an Instagram, like their business is their app. So their app has to be like crazy high, performant and all that stuff. So again, I don't bash cross-platform. There's business cases for both. Make the best case for your business and your company. Eula says, thanks for the answer and congrats on the job. Thank you. Whittle Pork says, I know I'm going to change my name to Microsoft Windows. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I love the puns. Keep them coming. Is it wise to pay someone to build my app for me? I can't figure Swift out. If you have the money, sure. I mean, I don't know your financial situation, but if you can afford it and you really, really want an app, go for it. If you can't afford it and you're going to have to go in debt and all that stuff, maybe not. Do I learn Swift or React Native? I would say if you are a diehard Apple and you just want to develop for Apple, then Swift. If you want to dabble in both Android and iOS, React Native. Sean, hi. How can iOS junior find remote jobs? That's very tough, to be honest with you. Most of the time, as a junior developer, and again, this is a very general statement, but you might not have the trust to work remotely completely on your own, not as part of a team, if it's your first iOS developer job. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's just pretty tough. Typically, your first job should be in an office with a team, because that's just going to help you learn. Once you kind of get that base knowledge and you get that experience, then you can start working like remotely and freelancing and contracting on your own. Tolga says he's taken off. See you later, Tolga. Victor says, will Swift die because many companies locally are switching to Flutter or React Native? Define locally. I don't know what locally means. My locally here in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, that is 1,000% not the case. Your locally may be. So do what you have to do for your job market. If everybody in your job market is doing Flutter and React Native, then yeah, do that. But no, I don't think Swift is going to die. I have a whole video on that. You can check that out on my channel. How many of your clients ask for a WatchOS app? 0. If you need an Android dev, feel free to email me. Maybe we could work on a project. Thanks, Kaya. I don't need one right now, but I'll definitely keep you in mind if I ever do. Have you ever made an app like FaceTime? How long would that take? I have not made that, so I'm not sure. Again, you guys are getting quick answers because I got to go. I'm doing the lightning round here. Your interview question to help me for job interviews currently. I've joined iOS developer as my first job. Congrats, Amit. Sounds like you got your first job, and I think you're saying my interview videos help, so congrats, man. Tatenda says, congratulations on your new job. Wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Looking forward to hear from your development experiences on your new job. Yep, I think we might get some SpriteKit tutorials. If you're interested in SpriteKit, that'll probably be coming soon. Because like I said, I'll be dabbling in that. Hey, Sean, currently I'm working at a company more than 1 year, but for the last couple months, I don't have any project right now. What should I do, switch or not? Are you working as a developer? Is that what you're... I'm not sure what you're asking. Like if you're there as a developer and you're still collecting a paycheck, but you just don't have any projects. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking there. Suresh says, other than Swift, what language are you working on? So I guess I can say I've been working on HTML and CSS because I've been updating my website, seanisland.co if you want to check that out. But I'm not really working on it. Victor says, in Estonia, almost all cities, Tallinn included, it's a small country. I think that was, okay, yeah, locally, yeah. Yeah, like I kind of answered in the question, if everybody in your market is going that route, then yeah, you got to go that route. But yeah, again, here in Silicon Valley, it's certainly not the case. Matek says, hello from Slovakia. What's going on? Karyov says, is there any solution to work as a contractor for an American companies or start from home? I am from North Africa. So, I mean, companies definitely hire remote contractors for sure. It's just if you have to have a pretty good portfolio and pretty good resume, for sure. It's very hard to get your very first job if you want to work remotely. Not saying impossible, just saying it's difficult. Ohio wages are $6K, Pittsburgh $80K for junior level. Thanks, Tony, for sharing that. I don't know. There are no entry-level developer jobs in the Northeast. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with the market outside of Silicon Valley because I've been here my whole career. It's all I really know. But that's a interesting insights, Tony. Appreciate you sharing that, those levels. And that does make sense to me. That sounds about right. And things are so warped here in Silicon Valley, like the price, like it's so expensive to live here, so salaries are warped. So it's kind of like an anomaly. Like you can't compare it to anything. Hey, so glad I'm here. I'm a huge fan of yours. What are some of your future plans? So Duran, if you just showed up, I'm wrapping up. That's a pretty big question to get into. Maybe next time. Okay, just getting through, gotta go. So what difference you found as a freelance and working for your company? Suresh, if you want to watch the beginning of the, once this replay goes up, I talk about that for like the first 10 minutes of the video. So once the replay goes up, check that out. Okay, here. Why didn't you stick to freelancing but go to a co-working space in order to interact with people? It's not the same. I did WeWork for a little bit. And everybody's doing their own thing. They all have headphones on. They got their head down. So like, you're not part of a team building the same project. I guess that's kind of what I wanted. Not just like talking to people. I mean, I go play basketball every day, so I do interact with people, but I meant like working together on the same project, I guess is what I meant. Do you think in the future you will switch back to full-time freelance? Is it something you have planned or is it impromptu? It'll be impromptu. I mean, I may go back to it. Really, the main reason I wanted to go full-time was really just a change of pace because I kind of got bored working by myself, like I mentioned. So maybe in a year and a half, I'll get bored of the thing and want to go back to freelance. That's the beautiful thing about this job is that the flexibility to work very different, environments is there. So again, that's why I love having this career because you can switch back and forth. Zenna says, will you push away possible clients due to your new job? Send them my way. Yeah, I definitely have to turn down contracts, but if I do anything, I pass it on to my Patreon community because we're in there talking about development all the time. I've gotten to know a lot of the people in there. So yeah, it wouldn't be to just, random people. It would be to people that I've been talking to and working with. So if you're interested in Patreon, you can see the link in the lower right. You can check that out. Okay, I got to go. I'm running late. See if there's one last good question. Gabriel, sounds like a feel-good story here. Hey, Sean, I just sent my first contracting invoice this past week. Thanks for all your help. Do you have any plans for videos on Core ML? So congrats on the contracting, getting your first, well, hopefully you got paid already. So sometimes in contracting, you get, getting paid can be an issue. But congrats on that. That's awesome. I do have some videos for Create ML coming soon, the new thing they just announced with Xcode 10. And then probably some basic core ML coming soon as well, because we are dabbling in that in our current app. So I don't want to promise how soon, but yes, it is in the plans. Article 95, do you consider yourself a senior or mid-level? I would say mid-level, not quite senior. Like I said, I wouldn't consider my senior until I got that chapter in my career where I'm working at a major company where, you know, they have millions and millions of users and every change we make is a big deal. So, yeah, that's when I'll consider myself senior. So once I get that chapter, that's when I'll do it. All right, everybody, I got to go. I'm already running late, going to be late for basketball. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you guys. I do these streams every other Sunday. So not next Sunday, but the next Sunday. And again, if you want to find out when I do them, follow me on Twitter. That's where I communicate like when I'm doing these and the time and everything. So see you guys next time.